Hi, I'm Essen Plus, the avatar for Ehsan Isani, an adjunct assistant professor at Columbia Business School and an investor at Crescendo Partners. I'm fortunate enough to be able to speak few languages. Por ejemplo, este soy yo hablando castellano. そしてこれがあなたに挨拶をしている私です。I can also synthesize data and offer my perspective on various topics. In this video series, however, I'll occasionally step in to help discuss the latest developments and applications of generative AI in fundamental investing with a particular focus on value investing. Today, we're sharing a fascinating conversation Ehsan recently had with Nicholas Kapur, co-founder of Tenzing MEMO, which is a smart and affordable AI market intelligence tool designed to quickly get professionals up to speed on over 6,000 public companies. Let's dive in and learn more about this solution.
All right. So we have Nick Kapur here with us, the co-founder of Tenzing MEMO. If not the only solution, probably one of the very few solutions out there offering Gen AI for investment research at a very affordable cost. Beside Tenzing MEMO, Nick has tremendous amount of investment management experience that he brings to the table at Monthly Full, Some Zero, and other places. And as always, I'm delighted to have him with us.
Thank you, Asan. It's great to be here. This is fun.
Excellent. So we wanted to talk a little bit about Tenzing Memo. So let's get started with the company and the product. Maybe you tell us a little bit about what your vision is when it comes to using your product or Gen AI in general in investment research.
Yeah, let me start by just defining and giving a quick description of the company. So Tenzing Memo is an off-the-shelf AI-first market intelligence tool that helps professionals get up to speed quickly on about 6,000 publicly traded companies. We do that by providing rapid, real-time company research, fabricated in the moment, interactive Q&A, deep research tools, event-based news monitoring that's highly customizable, and more in a simple, easy to use, no training. I think you'll learn this, Isan. You don't need to spend hours with an account specialist to figure out how to use it.
Right.
And we do that all at a very competitive price that is largely enabled by the fact that there were AI first.
Right. Interesting. So maybe now we make it a little bit more tactical. Maybe you tell us a little bit about what are some of the use cases that an investor can use this for, what you've seen being more popular in terms of the way Tenzing Memo is being utilized. And then maybe after that, we pivot a little bit, talk about how do we make sure that in terms of quality, the output is sort of reliable.
Sure. I think those are all really good questions. They're all pretty big questions. So let me just start, with the first, which is, considering the use cases that we really care about. So I think if you think about the traditional and kind of the prevailing way someone goes about researching a company that they're taking a look at for the first time. And if you're coming and you're looking at a company and you don't have a lot of prior knowledge about it or the industry, what do you have to do to get rolling? What that typically entails is going to the IR site or going to Edgar, downloading the filings, going to somewhere like Seeking Alpha or some other transcription service that might pull the recordings of earnings presentations or investment banking presentations and getting those. And these are all in 1,000 different places. So you're grabbing them, you're collating the documents. That's a pretty time-intensive process. And then just after you've done that, the real work begins. So you have to actually read the documents. Typically, if you're doing the job right, you're going to be taking notes and then you have to organize the notes. And then from that, depending on whether this pursuit, this kind of task is academic in nature or maybe something a little bit more actionable, like putting together a presentation for your boss, you have to synthesize from those notes, a coherent argument or description of the company. Now, that could be looking at it from the perspective of potential investment. That could be looking at it as, hey, this is a competitor in our space that's kicking our butt in a certain segment. We need to understand what they're doing. let me understand this new business model and why its margins are so much better than ours. I mean, there's an infinite number of little micro use cases, but when you think about how the strategic professional or the investment professional typically goes about doing this type of research, whether it's to put money to work or whether it's to study an adversary, it's really time intensive. What our goal is to really streamline that 0 to 80 process.
There was a video I watched recently on YouTube, where you were showcasing some of the functionality of the solution. And in particular, there was one in which you generated a very comprehensive research report in less than 15 minutes. And that was
Yes.
amazing. I found it amazing because the type of things that uh, were included in that report, if you want to compile that as a research analyst, it literally takes days.
It's forever. Yeah. And so that video is all those YouTube videos are now quite old. And largely from much earlier versions of Tenzing. That process now largely will take a couple seconds. And the precision and the richness of the detail within them is better than than you saw in that video, substantially better. And we're pulling in more documents, a broader array of information types into the system. And then the underlying foundational tools that we're using to process this information are getting better too.
Right. One of the things I personally found interesting was, there might be some investors or analysts who might say, you know what, I prefer to read these documents and transcripts myself, because this process of going through them manually helps me absorb information better. And there's nothing, in my view, wrong with that. Um, but having that in mind, I think a potential use case would be, okay, you can go through the material for a company in question yourself, but there are all these other competitors that you also want to monitor, and you don't necessarily have enough time to go through material for those players. This type of solution can come handy in order to distill critical information, aid you with the analysis that you're doing on company X.
The process of being an investor often entails saying no to a lot more things than you say yes to. And if you think about what that ratio is, whether it's 2 to 1 or whether it's 9 to 1, you're chucking a lot of things into the garbage. We think the perfect tool for that process is not necessarily to read every single document for a company that is going to ultimately go in the waste bin anyway. You can often, through heuristics or pattern recognition or whatever, you can identify situations that are no-goes by looking at consolidated, distillated information really quickly. So if you wanted to improve the velocity with which you threw something into the waste bin and said, you know what, I don't need to spend time on this anymore, AI is a really good solution for that. Now, does it get you to total conviction and confidence on how you know something that no one else knows? And should you make an investment decision entirely based on something that's derived by AI? I don't think so. That's when you want to read every single document. You really want to be sure all your core assumptions, all the components of your thesis are correct. They need to be sanity checked. They need to be proven. Yeah, but like that, going to that step, that's the ultimate step.
Right.
Instead, there's a lot of other, workflows before that that lead up to it that can definitely be enabled and facilitated by Gen AI.
Yeah. So let's say I'm a fund manager. I want to get it started. How should I think about using Gen AI solutions, the ones like Tenzing Memo? What are the questions I should be asking when I want to make the decision to adopt?
Yeah, okay. So I think there are, at least as it relates to Tenzing, and I'm sure, some of the other people you're talking to are doing focused on other workflows and use cases. The ones that we're particularly keen on solving for are that get up to speed situation that I previously mentioned. That's kind of core and number one for us. The other ones that I think are also really high up would be kind of the deep dive research where you need to get back to the primary source to verify kind of key points of truth. And we facilitate that through rigorous citations and kind of facilitating and vectoring people back to the source of where we got our information from, whether it's a SEC filing or a deck made at a sell side conference or whatever. We can get you back to what we said so that you can prove it to be true. Or if you have your own question, you can type it in and we can help you prove or disprove that aspect of your thesis really quickly. So we're an accelerant for that. I think another thing we do very well is kind of meeting and call prep. So if you're going to sit down with, if you're at a roadshow and you're going to sit down with the CFO of a new company and you need to know what they're doing so you don't look like a fool in that meeting, or you want to, really kind of get to the core of their contemporary issues, we can provide you with a list of questions, provide you with a list of contemporary issues, pain points that they're experiencing, areas of weakness, and we can really accelerate that process. That process, takes a really long time to get ready to kind of prep for an event like that. We do that well. And then also kind of data pulls, documents parsing, searching, can break down business strategy. You can ask for deviations from statements or policies made. So in other words, potentially identifying red flags, potentially identifying, like in one quarter, the CFO said this was important, and then in the prior 3 ones, they said something else was important. That's the type of stuff. It's a little bit harder to do. I think we do it pretty well.
Great. So maybe at this point, we jump into a system. Maybe you show us how the interface looks like, walk us through some of these use cases that you just discussed in the system so that the whole conversation comes to life.
Very good. Would be happy to. I've just requested sharing. Excellent. Okay, so I've just pulled up my browser here. We are browser-based and specifically desktop or laptop based. Okay, I'll just do Airbnb. That's a name I can
Okay, sounds good.
reasonably well. Okay, so we lay out our interface in a way that we kind of feel wraps, we provide kind of referential information around a company. And as you can see, what we're doing right now is pulling up the Airbnb name. We provide kind of core summary fundamentals, which you can dig into here. We'll provide estimates, income statement, balance sheet details as well, going back a couple years. So in other words, a lot of people do this well. We're not trying to do it better than them, but we think in your regular research process, you may need to refer to a prior year's earnings statement, estimates, et cetera. We also provide an annotated news chart so that you can kind of quickly go back through the company's history. You can see, if the company share price spiked or declined in a major way, you can pull up a news story. You can kind of quickly vector yourself to relevant news items. And then as I've been talking just now, you can see a new briefing report on Airbnb just pulled up. So in other words, everything gets fabricated and written in real time or in very recent time as you come into the system. It's really important to us that we're pulling in all the latest information all the time. And what we kind of like to look at as far as inputs of information include this fundamental data, the pricing data. We pull in a large number, if you look at the bottom right here, this documents tab, a large number of really all of SEC filings the company has made coming from Edgar, earnings call transcripts, presentations that the company has made either to the sell side or to investors, and company 8Ks, et cetera. This is what we kind of consider to be our ready binder. And all of those documents, which are typically a couple dozen, those go back about 2.5 years. So you can see kind of full coverage goes back to early 2022. It'll continue to compile and get longer as we go forward in history, but that's kind of time zero for us. And other sources of information for us include the news, the financial news. So we bundle and kind of wholesale provide access to premium financial news, pulling in relevant web sources, and then provide kind of curated and filtered relevant news media as well. So you could jump in to an interview with Airbnb CFO or CEO as well. So these are all kind of like the surrounding sources of input and information that go into our content, which is synthesized and displayed here in the middle in this top portion. This bottom portion here is a Q&A area where you can both kind of see and review suggested questions that we identify and we think you should be asking about the company. And then in this black box down here at the bottom, you can ask any question you want. We break down the view into a single company like Airbnb in kind of two primary ways. One is through these kind of structured and fixed topical sections like a product section. If you want to understand more on what Airbnb actually delivers from a product perspective, or perhaps more relevant if you're looking at a new tech company or you're looking at a manufacturing heavy industry company, you need to understand what they sell. You click on the products, you'll get a long, nice, detailed description of what the company does and what they sell. This breakdown effectively looks like a Columbia Business School investment thesis. There are a lot of the core topics that we want people to, or we think people regularly think about and they need to know about. We'll present them here. On the bottom left here are themes. So our system is considering and looking at almost 20, or actually more like 15,000 news articles every week. Topics of interest, of materiality come up all the time. We are in the position where we can actually provide something that looks like a real-time news service where we have our own kind of AI style news desk that is looking at all the information that's coming in and saying, this looks like it's important. We are going to editorialize it more deeply in one of these, call it dozen or so topics, and they move around. They're constantly turning over. And so, as far as the top 10 to 12 themes associated with Airbnb, there's typically a earnings recap. We think that's very important. You can pull that up and get a solid earnings recap, but there's also kind of more irregular or kind of non-recurring type situations. Like I saw this when I was just scanning it. Airbnb's legal and compliance issues. You just click it and you'll get, again, a real-time detailed article or description of what's going on with Airbnb's legal and compliance issues, which, as you know, living in New York City is a kind of ever-changing, ever-evolving situation. Now, so while this renders, I'm just going to go back to something that's already done. Let's go back to the product, let's say. When you're in here, you're reading about the product. What we like to do is present people back with both the primary sources as well as kind of like the news and the third-party sources on any given topic constantly. So if you look at sources of revenue, you click on it here, and we will present you with the most relevant document inputs to that source. So you click here, you go, and we're going to highlight not just the chunk of text that we used, but send you back to the 10Q from September of 22 that became kind of foundational in that chunk of text that you saw on the earlier screen. So we like to get people really quickly back to the original source so that they can prove or disprove various aspects of what they're thinking or what they're reading.
So I assume in this part of the process, the first part was, okay, I want to get it started with this name. What are the things that I need to know? And the system gives you that. Then you see, okay, I want to dig deeper. That's where we are right now.
Exactly.
My question is, can we augment and enhance these results by uploading some of our own proprietary documents or maybe sell-side notes or things of that nature?
Very much so. So, in other words, you want to manipulate and kind of curate the inputs into the system, and we definitely facilitate that. So we can do that on a client level, on an enterprise basis, where maybe someone has a internal research system or knowledge system that they want to sync our system with, so that they have a unique lens into the companies they care about. We do that, but we also offer that in the instance. So in other words, if you click add to this document bucket, you can put in any relevant PDF that you want to. So that could be your own notes from the company. That could be a transcript, an interview with management. That could be a sell side note that you are licensed to use and utilize. All of that can be done, again, in the instance when you want it to happen, or systematically as a customer of ours. We will curate and kind of customize the experience to whatever the client ultimately wants. I would say what we like about our business, and part of the reason why we're positioned that the way we are is, and this may get to some of the questions that you mentioned earlier,
Right.
we like using a core foundational amount of informational input that are, consistent sources of truth. And we think, for all the chatter about journalism out or in the media, like there are good controls in the financial media to ensure accuracy and fact checking is going on. That we
Right.
believe that to be true. The same is true of anything that is submitted and filed with SEC. Even if it's not technically accurate, the company thinks it's accurate, at least at the time they think it's accurate. And so we think that is a useful and important piece of information to get as far as what is the truth regarding this company. And so we actually have, I would say, a pretty conventional, highly public array of information coming in, and we like to standardize that. Anything else that you want, that you think to be a high fidelity source of truth, whether it's a really good sell side analyst or a really good expert transcript or whatever, we want to facilitate and enable you to have that interaction. Um, and so we like to just have a very healthy baseline to start with. And that's the information that we, going back to the very beginning, we want to make your life easy by
Right.
grabbing all of that stuff in, systematizing it, collating it, doing all the dirty work of parsing it, chunking it into relevant notes, which you can see on this right column here. These are all really highly relevant notes for this overview. But if you look at product, you're going to see a really good list of what are effectively little index note cards for the product of this company, and then you can just go and jump into the primary source. I think that's our view on the kind of document inputs is public sources, high fidelity, accurate, and kind of universally accepted. Anything else you want to do beyond that, we want you to do, but that's your interpretation.
Right.
That's a much more subjective decision in our view.
Right. And makes sense. And I just wanted to mention that in Tenzing MEMO, you have a free trial. So if someone is interested in um, creating an account and checking out the system and different functionalities, they can do so and try it.
100%. We are generous and liberal with free trials. We want people to use the product. We also want to emphasize the fact that, you can come in here and use it and get a feel for it, and it doesn't take a lot. Hopefully, it's pretty intuitive. It's simple. There's not a need for someone to come in your office and spend 2 hours with you to just show you how to use the new expensive toy you just bought. We're all about ease of use.
Right, excellent. So we can go on for hours. I personally always enjoy hearing your insightful views. Any parting word for us?
No, I think there's some really fun aspects of this tool that we didn't dig into, and that's okay. We've got a live demo, or rather an interactive demo on our website that you can just go and click and poke around the site without even registering. Obviously, we offer a really quick and easy free trial. I think there are a lot of things happening in the space, and we are iterating very quickly. So we're adding new features and functionality constantly. This is going to be an exciting space to watch, and I know you're already working on it, Asan. I love the fact that you're doing this. I can't wait to see some of these other videos. I think it's a really exciting place to be right now.
Wonderful. And I make sure I add the link to that demo to the video, for those interested. Well, as always, thanks for the insightful conversation and taking the time walking us through this. And I look forward to hearing about your next milestone in the next few months.
Thanks, Asan. I look forward to it too. Great to chat.
Thank you. Bye.